ladies and gentlemen. That's some stale popcorn. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first annual Delta Awards of 2023. We'll be going through my entire AMC A-list. Well, I mean, what would you call it? Like my transaction history. We're going to be breaking down and awarding all the movies that I saw beginning in 2023. Before we do start, second introduction, I did not watch Maestro or Anatomy of a Fall in theaters. I don't know how I didn't catch these. Maestro must have come out in like January or something. Starting off strong with Barbie, a movie that I was stoked for because Greta Gerwig was directing, and I love everything that she does. This is one of like the first direct social commentaries that I've seen that like wasn't super annoying. It reminded me a lot of Jumanji, and that it felt like a family movie that you could just rewatch over and over and over again because it was really funny. I think obviously the casting was perfect with Ryan Gosling, and then Margot Robbie being Barbie, like no duh. Mission Impossible, I believe 7, so like I guess 7 to 7.5, and the next one will be 7.5 to 8, I don't know. This one I was very stoked for because it was Mission Impossible, and that's something that I love. This was a huge disappointment if you ask me. The whole thing with the entity, that was the biggest MacGuffin I've seen in cinematic history, and it didn't make any sense, period. It was the stupidest writing thing I've seen in my life. The whole thing genuinely just felt like one big long exposition dump, but like for 3 hours. At least there was like a big epic climactic thing with the train at the end. That was pretty nice. And it was interesting to see some new aspects of the universe that we hadn't seen before, like one of the data handlers not knowing his lines and stuff. Like that was interesting, but overall, booty movie. Now we have our first animated film right off the bat, the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Wait, no, Across the Spider-Verse. Great animated film because unlike a lot of animation, it's a pretty slow, basically like family drama. Like it wasn't this big actionist movie. The cameos in this movie were like absolutely fantastic, and all like the little inside jokes and everything were really good. Like as a non-Marvel person, I enjoyed it. It put the actual MCU to shame. Considering Into the Spider-Verse, this is a really, really good sequel that just keeps the whole thing going. However, I have to mega diss on it because this would be the single greatest, I'm not joking, animated movie ever to me if it had just tacked on another half hour, been a 3-hour epic like Oppenheimer, and been a complete movie. But instead it just stops in the middle of the story. Doesn't have a complete resolution. People are like, oh, but Gwen's story got finished. I don't give a freak about Gwen, bro. Why would I care about her? 3 hours, greatest movie ever made animated. But no, they had to ruin it. Make me wait 3 years. As I just mentioned, 3-hour epic. What are we talking about? Oppenheimer, the single greatest movie ever made. It is the fastest that a movie has ever, from release, made it to the top of my list of all-time movies. This is number 1, period, beating out All That Jazz from 1979, I think. Needless to say, this is definitely Christopher Nolan's magnum opus, the film that his whole career has been working toward, if you ask people like me. The IMAX experience is unbeatable. I went to see this movie in theaters 10 dadgum times, 5 in standard, 5 in IMAX. Barbie got over $1 billion. This one made like 970 million. I mean, it almost beat the billion mark. The creator was something I went into pretty blind. It was a very interesting universe that they created with the whole like donate your face to AI. The Western Hemisphere is battling the East because the East keeps AI. Like that was a super interesting universe. Apparently, Reddit says that this movie is going to be like the template for CGI moving forward. I have no idea because I don't know visual effects and stuff, but apparently this movie has like the best visual effects ever. And the Oscars giving it to Godzilla was actually an upset. I thought the editing, in terms of like the fragmented storytelling of jumping back and forth and like showing certain things at certain key moments, I thought that was actually pretty well done. But obviously, I think everyone who saw this movie knows it's incredibly flawed in terms of plot. The logic is so bad, but again, sort of an interesting watch. The title of Scorsese's latest movie, just like the movie itself, is too long to pronounce. I'm not even gonna lie, I don't know where the midpoint of this movie was. It was an hour and 45 minutes in, which is crazy, but I definitely zoned out for like a solid 20 to 30 minute chunk. Very standard Scorsese movie. A lot of unnecessary bits, way too long. I'm here for, like, if Oppenheimer was 3.5 hours, would you see me complaining? No, because it would be good. This movie wasn't that interesting all the way through. Nonetheless, it was a very tragic and harrowing retelling of a very dark point in history, and it had solid performances and solid cinematography at some points, especially near the beginning. I noticed it looked really good. Obviously, the ending was very provocative, that when he himself, Scorsese, like, took the stage, and like, that was crazy to me. Other than that, I would not say I enjoyed this epic artsy 5-hour movie. The Holdovers is a movie I truly, truly love ever since it was released. It is an outstanding new old movie, if you know what I mean. The script, the performances, the direction, everything about it coming together to make like a movie that seems so dated, especially because they, digitally added all of the like visual grain and stuff. Like it's so perfect. It's so wholesome. It's a perfect mix of laughing and crying because it is a comedy and it's also a drama. I'm explaining all the other movies. This one, I don't even explain. Like it is just perfect the way it is. You know what I'm saying? I say nothing else. Now let's talk about a movie that is not perfect. Priscilla. Basically the sequel to Elvis that I don't think anyone asked for except for like hardcore feminists. It has got to be, in my opinion, the most pointless movie ever made. I mean, like, Dunkirk had a longer screenplay than this movie. I was wondering why I was the only one in the theater, and then I'm like, oh, because the movie's trash. Now, I will say to its credit, it is a perfect double feature with the aforementioned Elvis, because Elvis had no middle. I mean, it was just the beginning of a movie, and then like trailer, and then end of a movie. Priscilla has no beginning, has no end. It's just the middle of a movie that they just cut the ends off of. Like, it makes no sense narratively. So if you watch the beginning of Elvis, combined with the middle of Priscilla and the end of Elvis, you finally have a complete movie. Next Goal Wins is a movie that I wasn't like super excited for because it was just like a comedy that popped up, but I went and gave it a watch, and I think it was a very competent comedy. Michael Fassbender was very enjoyable as a lead in this one. I'm not entirely sure why everyone hates on this. Like, this thing sits at like a 45% on Rotten Tomatoes, and everyone's like, he really dropped the ball on this one. Absolute. And I'm like, I really don't get it. Heartwarming, uplifting, wholesome. And then it was funny. I mean, it made me laugh. So I don't know what the hate is on this one. Napoleon was a very interesting November release, and I feel like it was actually kind of hurt by how late it was released in the year, because when you're released in like later months, it's like it inherently builds more anticipation for the movie. And I think that most people would say this movie wasn't really what they expected. I certainly was expecting a large-scale, giant, epic war drama, especially when it's Ridley Scott at the helm. But unfortunately, it wasn't the great actionist battle war epic movie that we were expecting. However, for the very small self-contained Josephine Napoleon story that it was a good movie. Like, in that regard, it was actually good. Scott wanted to make the Josephine movie, and he made it, and it was good. Luckily, there is a little bit of big war stuff to keep you entertained. On top of that, Joaquin Phoenix and the girl, don't know her name, give great performances that keeps you entertained off the battlefield. And one of the funniest parts of the movie is that it does a great job at poking fun of the idiot that Napoleon was without anyone directly saying it. It's just you're just watching it. You're like, bro, this guy is unhinged. Dream Scenario was something that basically went under the radar for me. I didn't see a lot of ads for it, but I went and gave it a watch, and it has got to be one of the most interesting and original premises I've seen in a movie all of 2023. To me, it serves as a very good blend of genres with a super hard pivot in the middle. It starts as this lighthearted comedy, and then you hit this point where it just suddenly shifts into almost a horror. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And any movie that has a giant pivot like that and gives you the best of both worlds is always going to be very entertaining. And I'll tell you this much, I hate Nicolas Cage because all that National Treasure hullabaloo. He is getting really, really fun to watch. There's something about old man Nicolas Cage that's way more bearable instead of this, I'm gonna kidnap the President of the United States. In terms of plot and stuff, it's a pretty interesting social commentary. And when it comes to the editing, which I thought was one of the strongest suits of this movie, it reminded me a lot of All That Jazz, which I mentioned earlier is now number 2 on my all-time films. So the editing in this one was very powerful, if you ask me. Now let's get to a movie that I would consider my dear, dear baby, Ferrari, directed by Michael Mann and his epic return to film. I've only seen one movie of his, Heat, from 1903, and I'm a huge fan of his just for that. And so when I saw his name, Adam Driver, as an old guy, I was like, oh, yes. Now let's just get the elephant out of the way, right? This movie is heavily, heavily criticized from all around because, and I will say this with all confidence, casual moviegoers literally have no idea what they're talking about. They see a Ferrari trailer and they think of 2016 Ford versus Ferrari, and they're like, oh my word, all these car people trying to shove these ads down our throat. It's very clear if you watch this movie that it's a passion project, that like it literally was $92 million that got put in this movie. Not because it was going to make that back, not because it deserved it, but because Michael Mann wanted to make this movie for so long, and he got as much money as he could, and he dumped it into it. And it shows, and it's good. You can find some people with brains on the internet that are like, yo, this movie lost so much money, but it was so worth it because it's so enjoyable. It's a house drama. That's all. A domestic drama. That's what it is. There isn't a ton of racing like you might feel promised from the trailer, but from the trailer you can tell it's the domestic drama. But when there is the racing, especially at the end with the big climactic race, oh, it's so gorgeous in terms of picture and sound. It's just amazing. Adam Driver is definitely like solidifying himself as one of my all-time favorite actors, and he didn't carry this movie because it was already good on its own, but he just elevates it to this unbelievable level. I mean, forget Woodley. Her performance was absolutely terrible, and I don't know why that is. But Driver, mwah, beautiful man, beautiful movie. Now, Wonka is not a movie that y'all would think I would enjoy, but, you know, like, I'm pretty good at trying to enjoy all different genres and styles of movie. And I must say, Wonka, while I never returned to see it a second time, was one of the most like fun, colorful, whimsical kind of comedies. I mean, it was kind of a comedy, but it also was kind of sad at some points. I must say, Chalamet is like, I have so much respect for this man because he's got range. Can we just be real? He can play Paul Atreides, and then he can turn around and be Wonka. And it's like, it's incredible how he's able to be like so contagious. His smile in Wonka was so contagious. I don't know how he acts so goofy and then so serious another time. I really don't get it. Overall, Wonka, like, I know I didn't say a lot about this movie, but it was just a really well-rounded family movie. The Iron Claw. A movie that I was really on the fence about going to see, but let me just say, Troy Bolton blew me away. Seeing the High School Musical guy in a really dramatic role and absolutely killing it. The fact that he didn't get nominated for Best Actor at least really surprised me. The camera work to me was very reminiscent of The Graduate. The editor took a break with this one. Like a lot of modern movies, this one spans like many years, sort of like a Scorsese would, right? Where you have like years and years. And yet this one, the runtime never felt oppressive. I mean, it felt short and sweet and enjoyable. It's a great movie. The Color Purple, I was not excited for at all, and I only went out of respect for Spielberg. And I think that God was actually trying to keep me from going to see this movie because the first ticket that I reserved, there was like a shooting at the mall. The showing that I was at got canceled, and so I scheduled one for the next day. And I should have listened, God. I zoned out for the entire movie. Like, it's just, there was not a single scene that was interesting, entertaining, anything. I was bored out of my mind the whole time. The main lady's voice, her talking, ticked me off. Because she was, my sister. I was like, bro, I couldn't take it. And the fat girl, she was just annoying as frick. I cannot believe that the dude who originally dated her left his new girl, who was way more respectful and, let's be real, attractive, for the big, jerky, disrespectful, rebellious fat lady who totally deserved to get in prison at that one point because she literally was just acting up in front of the cops. But yeah, I just, if you waste 2 hours of mine, I'm not gonna forget you. Obviously, The Boys in the Boat would be a great follow-up because this movie, same thing, nothing really gripping in this one. I will say, whoever the lead actor was, his face was just perfect for film. Like in film, we look for great actors. We also look for people with great faces. And this guy, I don't know what it is, but his face just like pops off the screen. So I will credit this movie for that. I can't really explain why it was that this movie just like felt so empty, but I feel pretty confident in saying that a better screenwriter could have taken the same story and obviously made it, like any screenwriter that's good can make anything interesting. But it felt so flat. All right, so we are just on a roll of terrible movies because the next one we're calling American Fricktion. That's right, I have so little respect for you, I'm not even going to say you right. This was probably the greatest disappointment I've had in my entire life because this movie had a very slow rollout where, like, I don't know where it premiered, like, I don't know, New York or something, and it just slowly made its way over to Texas. And I was like, dude, when am I going to get to watch this movie that everyone's freaking out about? Finally released in Texas. And I was like, all right, great, I can go see it. I wouldn't have been that excited, but because they delayed it, it just built the anticipation. So I went, And it was so aggressively bad. From the trailer I saw, I thought that, like, man, I don't know if I can watch a movie that's just about white people getting made fun of for like 3. Like, I don't know if I can handle that. And it turns out that the trailer is a complete lie. And the whole making fun of white people, huge subplot in the movie with very little screen time. Most of it is just like a depressing family drama about a son who's taking care of his mother who has dementia. Like, that's literally what the actual movie was about. And so the racial thing with like making fun of white people, it was literally, that subplot was the same scene rehashed over and over again. He gets mad at one person because they like it, and then he gets mad at another person, and every time he gets mad about it, he goes on the same tirade over and over and over again. Just, oh, it's too stupid. Even the people who love this movie because, you know, they're stupid, they even admit that the ending, like, basically doesn't exist. There clearly was not an ending. Like, whoever wrote it and then won, which is ridiculous, genuinely had no idea how to actually wrap it all up. It just sort of ended, you know what I'm saying? Like Priscilla, the worst movie ever made. Alright, this one is going to be kind of tough to get through, which I said at the beginning of the movie. Poor Things, one of the most original, creative, wonderfully delicious sci-fis out there. However, it is a porno in disguise. There was basically no advertising for the fact that this movie was as sexually explicit, which I don't even think that's the right way of putting it. Like, that's just so tame. The movie, you had the trailer all over the place, but it just looked like an annoying feminist commentary or something. And then you walk in and you realize that this is like the adult theater from Taxi Driver where you just go in and watch porn. Like, I was in a theater with other people and we're actively consuming porn. What? Listen, the whole like science-y aspect with Willem Dafoe, I enjoyed so much. Like, that was like the first 30 minutes and I thought, I was like, man, this is gonna be great. And then it just turned into like a freaking sex circus. But, you know, like the cinematography and the set design and everything that it absolutely like swept at the Oscars, 100% deserved. It is a visual feast for the eyes. I just realized how bad that sounded with, you know, combination with the sex. If you literally just like pulled the sex out of the movie, it genuinely would be like top tier. I'm being dead serious. If we were able to censor it, it would be a fantastic movie. It's just really hard to enjoy. Like, after the first scene, I get it. Origin, an absolutely wonderful blend of documentary and film that destroys American Fricktion. Just like Barbie, it takes an incredibly sensitive and like rehashed topic and explains it and addresses it and engages with it in a way that isn't annoying, but is actually super provocative and true. It has brilliant performances across the board. It has incredible emotional storytelling, great direction. The score pops off. I mean, I remember watching this next to my mother, and she was just full-blown sobbing. I mean, especially as a white dude in 21st century America, where like the pendulum has swung against me. This movie was like, I don't know if I want to go see this. It was just spitting facts. So I was like, you know what? I can enjoy it as a white dude in 21st century America. The Zone of Interest, another incredibly harrowing movie about real life stuff. This movie is the only thing I've ever seen where you directly address and engage with a topic without actually doing so. And at the same time, it's super tense, and yet there's no tension to be found whatsoever. It makes no sense. It's paradoxical. I thought that the camera setups, the way that they put the cameras like in the walls of the house, so that you just felt like, you know, editing wise, it was literally just cut room. I thought that was really immersive and a really interesting way to watch this thing unfold, because it wasn't very cinematic. And it was really crazy the way you're watching all these mundane, everyday life things occur while your ears are just telling you that absolute horror is occurring. I mean, it was unbelievable. And when we talk about the ending, the way it jumped forward in time and then jumped back, I mean, that sent chills all the way down my spine, straight to my butthole. If I have to offer one critique, I'll say like the whole negative land thing with, I think, like the Jewish girl and its photo negative. That part was a little slow for me. After, I believe, 2014's Godzilla trilogy came out in America, Japan said, heck nah. And we got Godzilla -1, a very slow burner for a monster movie. It focuses on a very emotional storytelling, emotional character struggles, and not the monster itself. And then Godzilla, relative to the American Godzilla, I think was a lot smaller, if I'm being completely honest. And yet he was even more terrifying. I mean, all of the destruction scenes that you do get are unbelievable. And I do see, against the creator, why this movie did win Best Visual Effects. And for once, we finally have Godzilla returning into a villainous role. Because for some reason in America, we made him into a hero. And then we had like Godzilla and Kong fighting together. It's like, come on, dude. Godzilla's supposed to be a terrifying monster that burns your face off. At the end of the day, what it truly is like a small vision, slow form movie, which I think is what people want more of these days. And speaking of super slow foreign movies that people want more of these days, Perfect Days came out and just like, huh? It was 2023's only plotless movie that I went to go see. I mean, like a plotless movie where it just sort of like goes through and it's like, oh wait, Priscilla. But it perfectly captures everyday repetition and the fact that it literally just shows the same routine every day. And it has like this weird dream sequence with the trees. I don't know what that was about. The runtime did start to bear down at you, like right at the very end. For the most part, I was able to handle it, but eventually it was like, okay, I'm ready to go home. I've watched this guy clean the toilet 20 times. Overall, it is a really interesting commentary on, we should just be happier because there's no freaking reason to be upset when you have a job. Okay, so apparently I only saw slow foreign movies at this point in time because now we have to talk about Past Lives, which might have been even slower than Perfect Days. It was one of the weirdest, because of how realistic it was, screenplays I think I've ever seen shot and put on the big screen. It felt lengthy, but the thing is, like, if you can appreciate relatively well done material on the big screen, then I think you can find some enjoyment in this one. It's really not like that entertaining, and it's aggressively slow. But again, I mean, like, it's just something that we haven't really seen on screen before. An edgy, long-distance Zoom relationship international. Like, we've just never seen that in a screenplay. Like, when I heard that it was like a first-time writer-director, I was like, yeah, I know, it felt like a first time. I think that the acting was alright, but like the actual relationship between the two Asians was like really cringe to me. Like, at no point was I like, oh, I hope he gets her back. Like, I thought it was really melodramatic. So now that we have gone through all of the movies, you've heard my factual thoughts, we're going to be handing out all of the Delta Awards, which means we're going to be starting mostly with the actual Academy Awards. So for 2023, Best Production Design, I'm going to give to Barbie. Barbie Land to me is just unbeatable. It felt so closed off from the real world, in the way that there's a threshold to get from the real world to Barbie world land. It could have gone to Oppenheimer because they built everything. It could have gone to Wonka because it was really wonky, and it could have gone to Poor Things, which I think actually won. But you know what? I think Barbie Land / World was a good one. Best Costume Design, I will get to Poor Things because it was just like, it was feverish. With Napoleon, I'm assuming that it was a lot of money to get those costumes, so I will give a nod to them. Best makeup and hairstyling is going to go to Mission Impossible 7 to 7.5 because they still make Tom Cruise look like he's 30. I'm just kidding. I mean, what do we think it's going to go to? Poor Things, Best makeup and hairstyling, not a question. And the award for Best Miniseries goes to Killers of the Flower Moon. This was a really great year in terms of cinematography that it's hard for me to pick like an absolute winner. Zone of Interest had its really claustrophobic household setups. Poor Things was a visual delight when it wasn't just Emma Stone getting stuffed. Ferrari, in terms of like lighting and everything, was like, I ate that junk up. Oppenheimer, with its beautiful, stunning IMAX stuff, but I have to give it to the Iron Claw. Camera work was unbeatable. I loved every second of it, truly. Best visual effects, I'm going to be handing out to a movie that wasn't even awarded Oppenheimer. You can't even accuse me of glazing. The fact that they were able to capture basically everything in that thing on camera, like the flames and the fluids and the waste, like, are you kidding me? Godzilla -1 and the creator, yes. Unbelievable CGI. Oppenheimer, truly unbelievable CGI because there was no CGI. Best editing obviously went to Oppenheimer at the 2024 Oscars because cutting together a 3-hour drama in such a gripping way that kept you going the whole time is quite a feat. But I was talking about like Past Lives being a really interesting movie. Part of that is the editing. Origin, I think, was very powerfully edited. I mean, it made it much more emotional. What I am going to give it to is Dream Scenario, because obviously, as I said earlier, made me think a lot of All That Jazz, which was one of my favorite movies ever because of its editing. Now this one, I'm going to be very gracious. Best Sound Editing. An award that the Oscars don't even have anymore because they combined sound editing and sound mixing. And guess what happened? Oppenheimer got snubbed. Not gonna happen here, baby. Zone of Interest, Best Sound Editing. I'll give you that one, because if there hadn't been the sound editing of freaking gunshots and screaming and stuff, this movie would not have been the movie that it is. Obviously, Oppenheimer, you get a nod because your sound editing is literally the best in the entire world. And Ferrari, you and Dolby were so beautiful. The car's going meow. So here's where Oppenheimer refuses to be unheard. Best sound mixing.
Izzy, draw some circles on this side of the map where they would target us, starting with New York.
That's fair.
DC.
It's a weapon of attack with no defensive value.
Deterrence.
Deterrence. Do we really need more deterrence than our current arsenal of atomic bombs?
You drown in 10 feet of water or 10,000, what's the difference? We can already drown us. They know. Now they know drown us.
Best score. Let's not even beat around the bush. And the award for Best TV Show Length Feature Film goes to Killers of the Flower. Best Adapted Screenplay. I cannot believe that American Fricktion actually snubbed the freak out of Oppenheimer at the 2024 awards. It had one of the most horrendous screenplays. I've cracked the Oppenheimer screenplay open, and the fact that it's written in first person is like unthinkable. Like, who writes in first person? That's literally against the rules. But Nolan did it, and it's fantastic. Oppenheimer, Best Adapted Screenplay. Origin, you get a little shout out because I don't know how you wrote such an emotionally gripping tale that combines film and documentary and explains race in a way that is not annoying. Best Original Screenplay, I think all of y'all could see this coming. The Holdovers, absolutely tight script, brilliantly performed. I mean, there's no way that anything else could come close to just the perfect little family com drama that is The Holdovers. I will obviously give a little nod to Past Lives because, again, a very interesting script. It would never win, but it is a very interesting script nonetheless. Best Animated Feature Film, because there's literally no competition, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I sort of want to rescind that because, you know, they ruined it with the ending, but, you know. Best International Feature Film, I don't really have to think about. Godzilla -1 is really the only one that I actually went back to see and that I, like, enjoyed every single aspect of it. I think this is one of the more perfect foreign films I've seen in a long time. And Best Airplane Movie will definitely be Killers of the prestigious Best Director. Can you guess who it is? Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer. Bro, you made your magnum opus. We're gonna recognize you for it. And Ava DuVernay, is that how you say your name, honey? Origin, absolutely brilliant piece of film, something I've never expected to be as good as it was. The fact that you did that, I'm not even gonna say it again. You did it. Best Supporting Actress, Divine Joy Randolph. Is that how you say that? I felt very bad for your character in The Holdovers, so that's why you're getting this award. And Best Supporting Actor is gonna be a bit of an upset, because I bet you're expecting me to say RDJ for Oppenheimer, aren't you? Wrong. I think ever since it came out, Ryan Gosling and Barbie deserved it. And having seen Oppenheimer 10 times, plus all the times I've seen it at home, like, I get that RDJ contributed so much and it was so great. I just don't think it is as much as Ryan Gosling contributes to Barbie. And the fact that he went from the replicant phase, where he was in First Man, Blade Runner 2049, Drive, La La Land, which I haven't even seen, and then, boom, Barbie, like, and let's not forget Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things. I think he did a terrific job. I was not thinking of the Hulk when I watched that. And Best Actress will, just as the Oscars did, go to Emma Stone, because I don't remember any, like, really crazy lead females to me this year. And I will obviously shout out Lily Gladstone in the movie Killers of the Flower. Speaking of that, Best Anti-American Propaganda Film will go to Killers of the Flower. Now, Best Actor is a tight one because we had some fantastic lead performances for men this year. Zac Efron in The Iron Claw, Nicolas Cage in Dream Scenario, Timothy Chalamet in Wonka, Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, and definitely Adam Driver in Ferrari. And let's not forget a fantastic performance and a lot of effort went into this one, Leonardo DiCaprio from Killers of the Flower. But let's not even kid, guys. Cillian Murphy, Oppenheimer, unbelievable the way he was able to convey a sense of pride and horror at the same time. Basically, his big old blue eyes did everything for him. And here's where we're going to go super off script and get into the really fun Delta Awards, starting with Best Advertising. Napoleon was like advertised as this epic return to form for Ridley Scott. Obviously, it let me down a little bit. Zone of Interest released this one trailer just out of nowhere, super ominous in the US. And then when they advertised that this was Leonardo DiCaprio's best performance of his entire career in the second trailer for Killers of... Well, let's not even kid ourselves once again, people. Oppenheimer released two of the best trailers in the entire world on top of the Barbieheimer effect. Now, I know I just said that Oppenheimer released the two greatest trailers of all time, but the award for best trailer is actually going to go to Ferrari.
All of us are racers. It's our deadly passion. Our terrible joy.
Now, yes, I think if we were speaking more objectively, the second trailer for Oppenheimer would probably win because they incorporated the stamping effect to, great effect. I think the reason I went to go see Ferrari so many times was just because, the trailer held me hostage. I don't know why, it just did. Best title! It wasn't a lot of, fantastic titles. I guess I'll give it to Dream Scenario, but, Zone of Interest sounds kind of interesting. And also Killers. Speaking of which, the award for Best Off-Brand Lawrence of Arabia will be going to Killers of the Flower. Best Poster! I feel like there weren't a ton of great posters. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, if you find the right one, is pretty sick. But you know what? I'm gonna be gracious and give it to Godzilla -1. I'm not entirely sure what this symbol is supposed to be, but I see a big old Godzilla in the back. It looks pretty sick. Best Studio Intro is not gonna give it to Oppenheimer, although every time. Actually, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse set the tone like crazy. At first, I was wondering who is going to get the award for Best Opening, and I started thinking of Dream Scenario with it starting with a dream and being kind of freaky, and then American Fricktion, I can't believe I'm saying this, actually had a very funny opening because he writes the N-word, hard R, on the chalkboard, and then the only person to get offended and walk out is a white girl. And I was like, Sawyer, you're overthinking it, bro. Oppenheimer, hands down, period. The fact that there are people who sat through the opening of Oppenheimer in IMAX and didn't have a heart attack and die and went and complained about it on Reddit. Best ending, I'm gonna go ahead and hit up my boy, the Iron Claw. Very wholesome, nice ending. Obviously a little bit sad, but you get this nice little high angle shot of the family playing. The wifey's pregnant, by the way. That's exciting. Congrats, my boy. But you also have some funny and also bittersweet endings like The Holdovers. The Zone of Interest, like I mentioned before, with the cut forward and cut back, was super startling. And then Dream Scenario was a surprisingly poignant and emotional ending for a movie that was really unhinged and crazy. There weren't a lot of twists and turns in this year, but I'm gonna go ahead and hit up Poor Things for the award for Best Twist, because you find out that the girl who's been getting stuffed the entire time has the brain of a baby. So you were wondering why you saw Emma Stone jump off a bridge at the beginning of the movie, and it's oh, she died, and then they extracted a baby, a fetus or something. It was weird. And yes, there are people on the internet who defend that and say that it's not weird. Somebody call Chris Hansen. Best villain is going to go to Louis Strauss from Oppenheimer. Absolutely vengeful, especially in that last tirade that he goes on with his legal aids. Robert Downey Jr., I know you didn't get supporting actor from me, but you definitely made Strauss the best villain of 2023. Best hateable character. Where do I even begin? Every character in The Color Purple, especially the fat lady, the wife from The Zone of Interest, the main character from American Fricktion, and of course, the emotionally abusive dad from The Iron Claw. Man, that guy sucked. But I'm going to give it to Kuntz from The Holdovers. Goodness gracious, punchable face. And Best Data Wrangler, I'm actually being serious. Michael Slimmons. For a 3.5-hour movie, that's a lot of data that you gotta wrangle. So, you did a lot of great work on your movie, Killers of the Flower. And the best surprise, which we award to the movie that I was not expecting to be very great, and then was absolutely epic, definitely hands down goes to Origin. I don't have a single movie that I can think of that I went in so skeptical and nervous and came out like, oh! And the award for best disappointment, what do we think it's gonna be? The Color Purple? No. American Fricktion just built up so much anticipation with a slow rollout and then wound up being one of the worst movies ever created. Best over tomatoed? What do we think it is? The Color Purple? No. American Fricktion once again. 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. I thought this was going to be a banger. Certified fresh. But I don't know what this 93 is coming from. You have Priscilla. What? 84%? How did 84% of you like this crap? Best under tomatoed? I still don't know why Next Goal Wins has a 45%, but I'm going to go ahead and give that one to you because I don't know why people don't like you. You were a funny movie. Now we're going to get into the really fantastic technical stuff. The award for Best Frame goes to Ferrari. This is a frame that was actually in the trailer. It's when Adam Driver is sitting in mask. I don't know how you get a shot like that on camera. I don't know what it is, but it's just, I think to me, Adam Driver is just beautiful on camera. I think that's why I love this so much. And best shot, I'm gonna let this one speak for itself. And there's also that one shot of like the fire in Killers of the Flower. And the award for best transition goes undoubtedly to Poor Things. They have this weird chapter transition thing where it'll be like this black and white Emma Stone like running through some weird mushroom land. And there's one where she's like running along like the fingers of a hand. Wildly creative, wildly imaginative. I thought that looked so sick. And then the porno started. And the award for Best Reservation Promo definitely goes to Killers of the Flower. The award for Best Line will also surprisingly go to my boy, Ferrari.
What about Le Mans? Jaguar 1, 2, and 3. What's that?
Well, my mistakes I learned, whereas the mistakes you make, you repeat week after week. When you play Bologna, I hope you win. Otherwise, I have to relocate the factory, so the drivers are not dispirited by living in a city whose football team dwells in the perpetual twilight of failure.
I would greenlight the script just off of this one line alone. And the very prestigious award for Best Moment goes straight to, I'm sure all of you guessed it, Oppenheimer.
2, 1.
The moment that the screen literally just turns white, the speech that Oppenheimer gives at Los Alamos where he like hallucinates being in a nuke, that was unbelievable. One of the greatest segments of film I've seen in my life. And then there's also a monologue that Adam Driver has in Ferrari where he's talking about two objects cannot occupy the same point in space.
Am I a sportsman or a competitor? How will the French think of me if I run bare into a tree? You lift, he passes. He won, you lost.
I love that part so much. When it comes to best laugh, this one's kind of difficult. Like, what do I want to pick? Because you have to remember, what did I laugh at this year? You have in Barbie when Will Ferrell and Robbie Margot Sawyer, like, at a comma. In Next Goal Wins, there's like a joke where the coach passes out and he's like, a stroke. And then they're like, it was a heat stroke, you know, like a massive heat stroke. But if I remember actually watching this moment in theaters with my friends, we got a huge laugh out of it.
You did this to yourself, Hunnam, not me. I want you to remember that.
Hardy, I have known you since you were a boy. So I think I have the requisite experience and insight to aver that you are and always have been penis cancer in human form.
So yeah, Holdovers, penis cancer, fantastic joke. And the award for best sex scene goes to not Poor Things, even though you had like 30 different submissions, but it's 100% gonna go to Napoleon. And here's why.
My hair has been set the way you like it.
And the award for Best Onion, as in the one that made me cry, definitely Origin. I literally was sitting in this theater with only black people, the only white representative, and I was sobbing through this whole thing. First of all, because, you know, the actual journey the character goes through is incredibly tragic, and then just how tragic, you know, the story of the country is, and the way it was all cut together. And the award for Best Jaw Drop is surprisingly not going to go to Oppenheimer, even though I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. And then in Ferrari, you have an accident that occurs at the very end of the movie that caught everyone off guard, silenced the theater, no one said a thing after that. But I'm actually going to give it to the zone of interest. The first time that you hear gunshots in the entire movie is when the wife is like trying on a fur coat or something. You hear a couple pop, 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 and you're like, hold up, was that? And then it just cuts to the next scene. It does not address it. And I remember my friend literally like looking over at me like 30 minutes after that segment, and he's like, are you good? Because I had literally just had for like half an hour straight. And the award for Best Butt Clench is 100% gonna go to Past Lives. Even though I thought that the love story was melodramatic and really cringy and cheesy when he's waiting for his Uber, and they're just standing looking at each other, getting like closer and closer. Yo, my cheeks were just... You do have to shout out the creator for that suicide bot sequence where like the bot just boom, 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 boom. That was terrifying. And likewise, the award for Best Butt Sore is going to go to Killers of the Flower Moon. And the award for Best Jump Scare, I didn't go see a single horror movie this year, but I guess I can give it to Dream Scenario because there's kind of a scary part with like a guy covered in blood, but you know, I don't really know. And the award for Best Dumb Decision 100% goes to the Iron Claw. I don't know what his name was, but the guy who freaking is drunk out of his mind is like, I'm gonna go for a ride on my motorcycle. What? And the award for Best Romance is going to go to not an actual romance movie, but just a romance in a movie. The Iron Claw. This guy went through the usual like male pride, abandons his wife and child, but then recognizes he needs to change. Goes back, gets a house, has a lovely family. W moment. And the award for Best Horror, even though I really didn't see any horror movies, I'm gonna go ahead and honorarily give it to The Zone of Interest. You can definitely classify this one as a horror. And in the same vein, we're gonna give the award for Best True Crime Documentary to Killers. Best Comedy is not gonna be Next Goal Wins because I didn't go and rewatch that movie, share it with my family, nothing like that. The Holdovers, that's the one that for sure takes the cake. Absolutely funny, touching story all the way through. Best Action, it's really not fair. There was only like one big action movie that I went to go see, Mission Impossible 7 to 7.5. I mean, it was a lot of boring expositional stuff, but the actual acting stuff was really fantastic, especially near the end. And the award for Best Sci-Fi, also not very heavy sci-fi year for me, but I guess I'll go ahead and give it to Poor Things because everything with Willem Dafoe and his whole character was really entertaining. So kind of fascinating, but for the most part just funny, so I guess I'll give it to that. And the award for Best Thriller, also not really a big thriller year for me, but I suppose I'll give it to Godzilla -1. Definitely gave me a couple thrills, especially when he's chasing the boat. That jump was terrifying. Best Drama, let's just get it out of the way, Oppenheimer. Y'all can accuse me of glazing all you want, but this movie is literally perfect. Everything about it, don't touch me. And the award for Best Summer Movie, I would give it, honestly, to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, but they ruined it. And Oppenheimer honestly deserves this award, but I'm gonna give it to Godzilla -1. Really great summer movie. You as a dad, grab your son, go watch this movie. Yeah, well, it's out of theaters now. And the award for Best Premium Experience, we're talking IMAX Dolby. Which one takes the cake? Not Napoleon, although seeing that in IMAX, the visuals are very astounding, seeing all the like bird's eye big battle sequences. I want to give it to Ferrari for seeing it in Dolby the one time that I did get to see it in Dolby. The racing scenes were incredible. I mean, truly incredible. But if we are going to objectively say what is the best premium experience, obviously, Oppenheimer IMAX. Greatest cinematic experience you will ever get ever. I can't wait for like 2033 or 34 when this gets like a 10-year IMAX re-release. Let's go for 29. Let's get a 5-year, shall we? And the award, very coveted, for Best Piece of Trash. The Color Purple? No. American Fricktion. Greatest piece of trash ever produced. And the single best argument to bring intermissions back. Award is going to go to... And now the award we have all been waiting for. Best Picture. What's it going to be? Dream Scenario? No. Napoleon? No. Godzilla -1? Ferrari? Maybe? No. Oppenheimer. Greatest picture ever made. Absolutely destroyed everyone else. Gave us a nice July release. The rest of the year we had to watch absolute garbage. Best picture we've seen this year. It's going to be the best picture we've seen this decade, this century, everything. Amazing, masterpiece.
And if you haven't noticed, we've gone the entire video without saying Killers of the Flower Moon.